All right. So I am back again playing some Minecraft. I'm here on my stream world. Um, we've got a lot to do. So we are going to start first and foremost with kind of reviewing a little bit with what we did last time in the in my stream last night. Now, my stream last night, I played in my survival world. So, hey, so we played in my survival or my creative world, excuse me. And this is where I go to test stuff and make sure things go well before I set them in stone later. So over here, we looked at a block palette I think will work well with Minecraft and with the build that I want to do. So looking at these blocks, they're very soft, very nice soft texture. So I wanted to go with a very kind of striking design when it came to what our sphere is going to look like. And if I didn't say that before, we are making spheres, we're making globes in our world. So this is going to be kind of the design that we need. And so these are the blocks. Now, that means I'm going to need a lot of these chocolate logs, a lot of the dark oak, and then we're also going to need quite a bit of smooth stone blocks. So getting this, we want to go for the full striped dark oak wood, not just the logs actually, just so we don't get that the edge, this kind of concentric circle or concentric square look anywhere on our build, which it really wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I feel like if we're going to go this hard with it, we might as well make it look good too. We're also going to do the same thing with stripped birch wood. We're going to need some white glass, which at first sounds tough because it's a colored glass, but white is pretty easy to get with bone meal, and so we can start getting bone meal by throwing in extra crops that we produce, um, and putting those in a composter, so we can start getting that bone meal to turn into white dye. Let's see, what else do we need? Oh, and we need this white terracotta. Now, we are next to a mesa in our survival world, so we should be able to get enough white terracotta. Um, that will be a bulk, a significant amount of the base of the build. And so that's pretty much what we're going to be building with mostly today. So mostly getting the white terracotta and then transitioning into farming enough of the resources. Now, this is going to be my kind of home base. So I'm going to have a lot of storage here, not like bulk storage, but a good amount of storage here. Things where I can go and kind of reload and then go back out and do more exploring. Terracotta is probably not going to be the hardest thing for us to get. All of this stripped wood is going to be really tough just because it's going to be time consuming, and we're going to go through a lot of axes. Another thing would be the smooth stone. That's going to take furnace time. Same thing with the glass. Now, I also, since I built this 2D, I'm going to be referring to this quite a bit for my just kind of going back and forth. So it's not going to look exactly like this. This is a reference. So this is going to be kind of what I use to kind of look at to make it resemble it. So if I were to take a portrait view of our finished globe and then make it 2D, this is what it should look like, ish. And then we'll be building up from there. Now, I decided on an odd diameter, which means I will have a one central block in the middle, which I've got some ideas that I want to do, so having that won't be that big of a deal. Just as kind of a preview, because I want my mind to filter up the blocks uh, that I want to store in there. I want it to do it all automatically. If I have an odd number, and it will be around 5 blocks. It's like 5 to 7 blocks will be at the base for the width of it. So let's say I have that. We have a center block, and then we have 4 kind of tubes here. Now, what's really cool about this is that these tubes could be, if we can manage it, these could be water elevators. And then, so in this base 5x5 area, we could have 4 water elevators that go through 4 different sorting systems or parts of the sorting system. We could put a filter down at the base that shoots them into these different water streams. And that'll give us 4 different channels of vertical item movement in a fairly tight spot while integrating it into our base. So I think that, to me, I think that's clever. Because I thought of it. But like for the idea of the beacon, I want a beacon in the center, because that's gonna look really cool with a beacon just shooting up. Let me to show you. Let me grab a block. Where are my good blocks? Let's just do this. So, is it just one, or do I need a base 30? Boom. There we go. Is that it? There it is. So imagine seeing that going through the top of the base 2, kind of skewering our base. I think would be really, really interesting, and be kind of just a way for us to see what's going on while also being really functional. I love things that are aesthetically pleasing and functional, because I think you can do both. You know, it doesn't have to be an ugly build that works. I think it could be a pretty build that works. But we are going to jump over to our survival world now, and we are going to start getting that white terracotta, because that's probably going to be our first big hurdle, is mining all of that. Now, we found more friends. I haven't named them. Oh. Ah! Oh, gosh. Okay. No! You guys killed Quincy. Norbert, Douglas, you killed Quincy. That's rude. That is super rude. Ugh. All right. That gives me a sad. Let me go around. So we're going to memorialize him with a sign, and here lies Quincy. He did good. So yeah, here lies Quincy. He did good. I feel like people are coming into my house. Now, we are going to. That makes me sad. You guys killed Quincy before I even had a chance to name tag him. You know what? I'm going to blame you three because no one got. They didn't shoot each other until you three got over here. So I'm blaming them. I am very quiet. Let me see if I can adjust that for you. How does that sound for you specifically? Am I any better now? My levels look a lot higher. My mic is up. So, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yes or no? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Um, Let me know if my mic's too hot or if game sounds are too loud or whichever. Um, so we are going to need a couple of pickaxes to get through um, this. So let's go ahead and craft up some pickaxes. All right. Now we are still very basic, just using iron for a lot of things, which not a huge deal. But we are the sun is almost down. So let's um hmm Brendan says hi. Well, hello Brendan. Are you having a good time doing virtual school? And if you are, is this your break time? Let's harvest the sugar cane while we're sitting over here. Because even if we don't have room for it, we can always harvest or put it in the composter to get some bone meal. And what's cool about this is that you could jump between without having to worry about things. Don't shoot me, boys. He waved. You know, like that is adorable. That is the cutest thing, actually. Oh, oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna take this extra 20. We're gonna throw it in here for the composter. We got enough to make any? There we go. Got some bone meal cooking. We're not cooking, being composted. Taking a lunch break. I ate an early lunch. I went and got some dollar menu from the McDonald's, and I got myself some McChickens, which was delicious. So when I was recording, I recorded a little clip to put as a post for like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I was on top of my house here and on Minecraft, and a wandering trader came by, and then I killed him and his two llamas. And I forgot I have the the Minecraft mob head pack from Vanilla Tweaks installed. So I completely forgot about that. So I get mob heads, which I forgot I put it on there. So if you see anything that looks a little bit different from normal Minecraft, um, I went to vanillatweaks.com and added some stuff. So it kind of fixes some things about hoppers, letting you see the directions of them, so you can see how what direction your hopper is facing just by looking at the top, and lots of different stuff. We are going to start our sphere building right up there. The base of it will be right there. So we are going to go mine some terracotta. So we're going to go over here. You want to try the spicy nuggets. Oh my gosh, I love spicy stuff. I want some spicy nuggets. Those horses had me concerned for a moment. I thought they were. I thought they were more pillagers, and I was going to. You like my pickaxe trophy? Well, it's a netherite pickaxe, so I'm saving it. And it's a silk touch, which means that normally, like when you mine stone with a regular pickaxe, it turns to cobblestone because it like breaks and deforms. But when you have silk touch, it just gives you the block that you mined, so it doesn't break it down to a different form. It just gives you the same block that you're seeing when you mine. Um, so that's so I wanted to have that. So when I go and do some nether mining and I try to get certain things and certain kinds of blocks, yes, it does glow purple. Enchanted things glow purple. So just so you know. Oh my gosh, I forgot that there was a little swamp here. Ugh, makes the water so gross. And you can tell where the swamp biome ends because the water changes colors right here. So it's like swamp biome, not swamp biome, but that little bleed over. The water looks so brown and gross. So I finished Superman Man of Tomorrow, and it was good, and I enjoyed it, but I have opinions. Mostly are different enchantments for colors. No, which would actually be really cool if they did. Anything that's enchanted is enchanted as purple, like a purple glow to it and shimmer. Um, but no, that would actually be really neat. It'd be a cool visual indicator of what kind of enchantments are on armor and tools and such. But so the fake out with Martian Manhunter, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it. The fake out with Martian Manhunter was I get it and it works. It just feels a little cheap. I mean, if you're going to take the time to give Superman an emotional moment where he sees a new ally essentially get incinerated, to go back on that does nothing for character development. All it does is all it did was give you an excuse to throw Martian Manhunter in later, so you could write yourself out of a corner, because you need Martian Manhunter later to help give Clark more information. It to me, uh, nobody dies forever. Yeah, I know, especially in comic book movies, and it's not really a huge deal. But it's just one of those things. I'm like, you went out of your way to show him getting incinerated, and show that it made a lasting impact on Clark. Why wouldn't you? Just like real life, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you use that and keep that as a character motivation in that kind of bubble of a story, because it doesn't really exist in any of the other DC animated films, like in that little micro universe. It's kind of its own thing. So they could have killed off a character, a main character, and gotten away with it without running into any issues later, because it's its own one-off story. Um, and it would have made for a nice, impactful moment to give for Clark, kind of almost give him a Spider-Man moment. Yeah, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Yeah, I could definitely see that. But like it definitely gave him his almost Spider-Man moment. Not like with Spider-Man, because it kind of gave him the motivation to become a hero, but it made him question the motivations of being an alien superhero, which I thought was a really interesting take on it. Um, a lot of the secondary characters were very secondary, um, which I mean, not very many people know the secondary characters, so like just mentioning their names is almost like throwing it away. It's the first movie in a new. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I guess it makes sense to keep Martian Manhunter around. That way you can have more stories that involve him or have stories centered on him. But again though, I think to just have a cheap moment where you show him dying in a way that is linked to what is or was his weakness traditionally is, I don't know. I think it's just a cheap move and really lazy. Apocalypse War ended the old one. Ah, okay. I have not watched Apocalypse War. No judgment. No judgment. But since I have HBO Max, most of the DC animated movies are on that, so I will be able to watch it. I need to watch them like in order. Um, it was just for shock. Yeah, but it was shock with no consequence. Like I'm fine for shock moments because shock moments can do things in a story or do things for a character. They can provide emotional motivation or um, give them inspiration for something. Um, so like shocking moments are completely acceptable, and sometimes necessary to help drive a plot forward. Because, like, especially if it's plot that is meant to be an audience, not pleaser, but something that keeps the audience's interest in there. That would be an epic movie day with all the animated universe. Oof, that would be like 2 movie days. That's like that's like 2 days of just solid movies and big sweaty hairy guys sitting in a room on a couch for 24 hours straight just watching movies, which is its own uh kind of thing in and itself. But um I but I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I love the way they handled Parasite. Parasite was so good. Um and showing how he was a loving father. You could do it in one, maybe. It'd have to be like a full movie day though. Like we'd have to start early because there's what, like 10 animated movies, and if they're all like an hour a piece, um, hour and a half a piece, that's going to be an hour and a half a piece. Would be 15 hours worth of movies. Um, so we'd have to start early and end late. But yeah, Parasite was great. I loved it. And I love the way that he changed shape as he absorbed more energy. I thought that was a cool, like, artistic kind of thing. What to say, 12? Yeah, and if they're between an hour to over an hour and a half, that's a lot of movies to fit in a day with no breaks or anything. Um, but I love the way Parasite was handled. Martian Manhunter, he in his original form was terrifying. Like that was, he kind of looked like his face was very um yeah, his gradual transformation, but his face was very let me put this in code. Whispering eye. Uh if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Just because I know you have a younger one with you. Um things that he will learn about later. Uh so but other than my kind of Freudian observation, um, with that, he was terrifying, and his kind of his assertiveness with using his telepathy and forcing it on people and then apologizing later, I thought was a cool touch. Yeah, I could see that. Just because of how visceral it was. It because it wasn't just he was burning. It wasn't just that it was a character in agony. It was the fact that it was all together that. Um, it was all together in one thing of just a character in agony, watching them being incinerated, that kind of stuff. So I could definitely see how that could have been a tough call. I don't have a bed, and I am very far away from a bed. So we are going to. Can I make. No, I'm too short. Okay, let's go see if we can find something. Um, tell him you'll tell. Okay, tell him that he can know what Whispering Eye means. Let's see, is he in second grade now? Third grade? He can know once they have the talk at school, which is like fourth or fifth grade. I think that would be a thing. I think that could be a time where you're like, okay, this is a thing. This is a funny moment in a movie that they kind of referenced it as. Um, I, oh, yeah, Martian Manhunter is super cool. He's like a super cool character. Um, I I wish that we could get more movies centered around him, or at least in that kind of vein. Like Miss Martian, I think would be great. He's third grade. Okay, yeah, I would think once they get to the age of the talk at school where they discuss those things would be they don't discuss the other, but which I think could be a disservice just because they won't know about how other people work. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Um, let's see. Let's make a bed so we can sleep real quick. We're actually gonna leave this bed here, so we'll put it there and then sleep. Um, oh man, we share a favorite because that is my favorite DC hero, followed closely by the Flash. Jay Garrick Flash is my favorite Flash, um, and it doesn't matter that he's not the fastest. He's just to me, he's got one of the cooler designs. He's got the most kind of comic booky origin um, of the different Flash characters. Uh, who's ever had the who's ever held the title of the Flash. I like it. It's very fun. It's very like not a thing. It doesn't make any sense, which I love. But yeah, Billy Batson Shazam is my favorite uh, DC hero, followed closely by Jay Garrick Flash, and then um, yeah, cast Rob Lowe and Stargirl. Are we riot? Rob Lowe is who? As Jay Garrick? Oh man. So when the reason I'm smiling is because okay, when the very first Iron Man movie was in talks, like they were in talks of making an Iron Man movie, I heard it, Robert Downey Jr., and I was like, another Rob who would be, I think, a cool Tony Stark? Rob Lowe. Like, Alan Tudyk. Tudyk is Alan Scott. Oh, yeah, Tudyk as Alan Scott would be great. Um, but I would like to see Alan Tudyk as a character who's a little bit more brash because we can start to get a little bit more of his comedic side. I think Alan Scott's a little too serious. Um, I think a good flex of Tudyk's acting muscle would be a Guy Gardner Green Lantern. I think that would be cool. But I think Rob Lowe would have made a great Tony Stark for a few reasons. The way he delivers monologues um, in the specials, yeah. The way he delivers monologues in like The West Wing, he has so much presence and arrogance sometimes, but he can be earnest with it too. Um, and I think he would have been great. Now he wouldn't have had the kind of flair that RDJ brought to um, brought to Iron Man. He wouldn't have had the same sort of like fan favorite flair, but I think Rob Lowe would have done a fantastic job as a Tony Stark. Um, but having him be Jay, oh man, that could be really good. I almost want a younger Jay just so we could get some longevity out of like a recurring character. Not that Rob Lowe is like super old, and he looks great. He's in amazing shape. Um, um, but like longevity in the use of the character of Jay Garrick. Um, however, the Black Adam movie is supposed to feature the Justice Society, and they haven't said like they've mentioned Doctor Fate and Hawkman, but they didn't mention Jay Garrick Flash, which would be confusing because they haven't even released the Flash movie yet, which is supposed to be a somewhat soft reboot for the DC EU, which I think will be nice because it'll help. Because the Wonder Woman sequel will be okay. Because Wonder Woman had her movie, her solo movie, and um, the sequel to her solo movie as prequels to Dawn of Justice and Justice League, um, both versions of Justice League, the theatrical and then the newly released, the newly being formatted director's cut. So I think there could be some not continuity issues, but ways for continuity to get really blurry. And I think having them do a version of Flashpoint to either course correct or just align things a little neater is fine. Because the DC movie universe isn't that big yet. Like uh, it's not 20 movies deep and having to cover up plot holes because some movies don't think about the other movies. Um, so it's got a handful of movies that have been released. So there's gonna be yeah, Swamp to a Desert Fast. Well, the swamp's just like right over there. This desert, I love this red sand. Red sand is like one of my favorite textures in Minecraft. Um, but the DC movie universe isn't a big universe yet. So it's still got a lot of potential and it's still got a lot of growing to do. Obviously because it's not as widely received. It hasn't proven itself. I will say that I'm certain, like from an anecdotal standpoint, I'm starting to notice more support retroactively for some of the movies. Like people are now cherishing Man of Steel as a great representation of a Superman movie. People are now looking back at Batman vs Superman and being like, you know what, this wasn't as bad as I initially thought. That's not how planets work. Yes. In the real world, there's a little bit more graduation, but in Minecraft, they're biomes, so everything is next to each other. Like you can have an ice biome right next to a desert, which is awesome. uh, what was I saying? But yeah, the DC universe isn't that big, and it's getting more support retroactively, which I think is great. Because it's just more people who want to watch superhero movies. Like the competition between this weird fan competition between Marvel and DC movies is like one, there's never a fair comparison. Just because the Marvel movies have had a pretty good standard of being like watchable at the very least to being really funny and entertaining. Um, but they don't get scrutinized for comic book accuracy like the DC movies do. For some reason. And I think it's because they're competing comic book publishers, so there's already an innate sort of competitiveness and comparison. I and I mean they're contemporary works. There's going to be um, uh, there's going to be comparisons automatically. You have to because they're contemporaries, uh, especially in genre. Because a superhero movie is in its own way a genre. I mean, we can get subgenres of like comedies and political thrillers, like with Winter Soldier. But you know, they're superhero movies. They're comic book movies. There's a reason why that name of a genre exists because that's what those are. Suicide Squad is pretty gross though. It has its moments of greatness, and some moments that are just really good, but it is far overshadowed by bad performances, bad characterizations, some bad writing. Not all of it's bad writing. Some of it's really good. Um, like, you can definitely tell that they wanted to make a Suicide Squad movie with Harley Quinn and Deadshot. Like, that's it. And then they just threw in characters after that fact. Um, So you can kind of tell what their weight of importance was. Um, but yeah, out of all of them, it is easily the weakest movie of that universe. They saw Pattinson and decided to count their blessings. You know, Robert Pattinson as Batman in that trailer, that first trailer. Um, there Someone said that everything we saw in there was all practical effects. There was no CGI, uh, which, I mean, practical effects could still be camera and lighting corrections and things like that. So, in terms of like CGI of using blanks in blank cartridges for like firing, because he gets like shot and then comes back and like beats down the bad guy. He like that, you know, stuff like that's been has existed for a while, but it's nice to see a lot of practical effects in that. I mean, if you're going to do a gritty Batman movie, a gritty, you know, like Batman is already, showing him with very little CGI, I think, is preferable. Birds of Prey was a blast. Birds of Prey was great to me. Like, that was a great way to have a female driven movie that was not a female driven movie or a female driven moment driven by um I hate using the words forced inclusion because that's not a thing. It's either inclusive or it's not. Um it's not at It was handled in a way that was more natural than anything Marvel has done in 2 dozen movies. Um, in 2 dozen movies, they didn't have 10 minutes worth of something like that DC did in one movie, um, and it was great. It was fantastic. Huntress could have been developed more. There were times where we were watching it and I forgot Huntress was even in it. Um, yeah, uh, I've been developing more of a criticism of Batman as a character than Batman as a movie property. Um, like, I mean, we could talk about it now. I think that's fine. If you think about it, Batman is doing nothing different than any radicalized militia group, or uh, uh, or entitled police officer. He puts himself above the law to carry out vigilante justice in a way that he deems acceptable, that he deems morally correct. And his brand of vigilante justice is no different than anything that is being criticized from the from police officers in America. So if you're a person who criticizes police officers' brutality in America, it would make sense that you would be critical of the brutality that is displayed by characters like Batman, who think themselves higher than or mightier than the ones that they are beating down. Um, and I mean, like, we know that funneling money and resources into places that typically have a higher crime rate helps to squash that crime rate. Um, we know that providing services for people is more valuable than jailing people. We know that uh, uh, providing rehabilitation is more valuable than punishment in a physical sense. So yes, that's why I kind of most street level heroes are like that, but Batman is by far the most popular and most prominent, and has had like the most movies devoted to him and his version of justice that like we kind of idolize, which is no different or is no less as unjust as anything we criticize in the real world. Um, Now, adding in like the fact that he does put up a fight against people who are unnaturally powered and enhanced, um, aside, because it is a comic book, there is going to be fantasy elements in there. So, like, punching a fantasy villain that has powers that could destroy entire city blocks is not an equal comparison. But when it comes to the normal criminals that he usually um, puts away, they are just, usually a bunch of guys who are looking to steal or looking to hurt people for whatever motivation, and he solves that problem with his fists. Batman's shown fighting economic marginalization, but not often spoken through a detail. Yeah, like, it's usually not something that they focus on, because granted, that's not an interesting sell in in comic books. Like, no one's going to look at, all right, this is Batman Enterprises, where we take homeless people off the street, get them jobs, help them establish themselves in a community. We're going to make this a better place by providing free public transportation. All of these things that would better a community and a society that Batman is trying to protect, like providing those things or helping to guide a society to provide those things, wouldn't be an interesting comic book. You know, for some reason we like watching people beat up other people. Sorry, not aggression. Yeah, uh, Twitch stream chat lag is a thing. So, like, it to me, it's just like I see a sentence, I respond to a sentence. Uh, yeah, hashtag Technoman. Yeah, but I mean, but then again, like, that kind of goes against. Superheroes were made in a time of where we thought that punching punching the evil out of someone was acceptable, um, which isn't an excuse. It's just, kind of the reason that they exist is because we have they are entrenched in that kind of part of history where we thought physical violence and physical consequence um, was the best solution um, to anything. So, I mean, there is a precedent for that thinking, not a great one. Sheep, 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 sheep. Breed the sheep, breed the sheep, breed the sheep. Pig, 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 pig. Pig, 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 pig. And cow, 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 cow. They are an expression of aggressionist fantasies. Yeah, I mean, like, we saw a little bit of that, and some of the comic book creators or character creators who have kind of spoken out against people idolizing some of those, like when certain police departments will try to incorporate the Punisher symbol. Um, and the guy who created the Punisher was like, "No, don't do that, because that's not what the Punisher would want." He is often seen criticizing police and their overuse of power, which is weird because you have someone who is ex-military um, abusing their training to take vigilante justice. But again, that's an entire, like, that could be an entire conversation in and of itself. I need chickens. Why don't I have chickens yet? Where are my chickens? I'm going to chop you down. Come, no, come here. Come here. The icon of law and order. Yeah, sure. I the sarcasm through the text is strong. Ugh. But what other DC movie was really good? Shazam was really good. Like, it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. Uh, Zachary Levi, when I heard he was going to be Shazam, I was a little hesitant. But at watching him and seeing him like a kid in a grown up body, essentially, that was fantastic. Look at all these chickens. And I have no chickens. I need to get some chickens though. Yeah, Shazam was a total blast. Seeing the Shazam family on the big screen, like, I when I was a kid, I never would have thought we would ever see that we would see the Marvel family, the Shazam kids. I never thought we'd see that ever on the big screen, ever. Let alone a Shazam movie. Um, so, like, that was just a moment for me where I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, yes, give me the characters that are weird. Like, now give me I never um give me the characters who, like, Booster Gold. Give me a Booster Gold movie. Like, why don't we have a Booster Gold movie? That would be amazing. And I don't want it to be a Booster Gold Blue Beetle movie, because I want a Blue Beetle movie on its own. Um, I think I think they each deserve their own movie. Now, if they wanted to do a team up later on, that could be cool. You thought that about Ant Man? Yeah, Ant Man was definitely that for Marvel. Totally, never would have expected Ant Man to get its own movie. Ant Man got its own movie before Black Widow did, and Black Widow has been around since Iron Man 2. Ant Man has had two movies before Black Widow had her first. And she's been around since Iron Man 2. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, a Blue Beetles movie. Yes, I see what you did there, and I agree. I think starting with Cord and having him pass the torch to Reyes would be a good move, and I think it would be really cool if they started with Cord, um, and then have Reyes come in later as not come in later, but like he's also in the movie. Like it's Ted Cord as an established hero, kind of trying to pass on the torch, but in doing so, gives the scarab, and the scarab binds itself to Reyes. She's written so badly that fan support is lacking. Yeah, I mean, Scarlett Johansson aside, because Scarlett Johansson is problematic on her own. The character in the MCU is so hot and cold for me. Like having her in Iron Man 2, fantastic. I thought it was great. She was we knew, the audience knew that she was Black Widow. Tony didn't know. And then it came out later that she was, and it was a great reveal. Awesome. But we never really got to see that kind of espionage side again until Winter Soldier. Um, she wasn't in um, Iron Man 3 because Iron Man 3 came out after the Avengers movie. She was fine in the Avengers. I think she was great. Again, I think the relationship between her and Hulk was weird. And never it I first have to criticize that it never properly resolved, and that's because it never properly started. Like it started almost off screen. Um, if any other character had a movie in Limbo, it would have hit premiere before Mulan. You know, yeah, I think Disney is playing the money bet with that, because Black Widow probably isn't going to pull in numbers like Wonder Woman did, or even Captain Marvel, for that matter. I don't think it's going to do well. It would do well either way. I think it'll be a fine movie. I don't think it's going to be a bad movie. I'm sure it's going to feel kind of not unnecessary, but I think it for some people it's going to feel like too little, too late. Like you waited 2 dozen movies before you gave her a movie that could have explained her backstory and gave us a deeper understanding of why she is the way she is while we're watching her be the way she is throughout these weird force earned. I don't know if it's unearned, but because it is definitely earned. I think Black Widow should have a movie, especially with her interactions with Hawkeye, like giving Hawkeye more screen time, in a way that isn't like a way to trick us into thinking he's gonna die in Age of Ultron. I think that would be nice. He wouldn't have to be a main player in it, but having him in there in a couple things, I think would be nice, especially if it. I think would have been a really cool off screen along with all Polka character development. Yeah. I think what would have been really cool, while we're waiting here to let this stuff smell, what I think would have been really cool is that if we got to see all the references that Black Widow makes to her character, like in Avengers, talking about she's got red in her ledger. Like they show us that clip, they show us that scene in the movie, and then we get like a 25-minute flashback of what the red in her ledger is. And then we kind of flash forward to a moment maybe in Age of Ultron or Winter Soldier, where she talks a little bit about um, her her past and that, and some espionage, and her how she knew of the Winter Soldier. Flashback there for 25 to 30 minutes and see the interactions were there. Like use the movies that she has dropped, um, little lines of what her past is, and build whole scenes out of them. I think that could have been a great way. That way, when people go back and rewatch it, you could almost pause the movie, watch the Black Widow movie, and then check out where that scene is, the flashback, and then go back to the other movies in there, so you can actually get her full character background while watching the MCU. Because I think the uh, the Black Widow movie is supposed to be take place in between uh, Civil War and Infinity War, and no, yes, Infinity War, Civil War, and then parts of Endgame. Like we're supposed to see why she has white hair, in Infinity War, which isn't really explained at all, and the fact that they're going to explain it in another movie, I think is lazy. I think it's just plain lazy. I think it's really just they thought it was cool, but I mean, if you do a big character change, like they gave us a reason for, they gave us even an inner, like they didn't even mention it in the movie, in Infinity War, but we got to see an entire interaction with with Cap and Thor talking about their hair and facial hair right as Thor enters in Infinity War. But we didn't even get a line of dialogue explaining why Black Widow has white hair. Um, I think show having the Black Widow movie like this and how they've treated the Black Widow character has really highlighted that Marvel is very, like, the MCU has is and has always been geared towards male fans and male characters. I feel like having a Black Widow movie in now is because fans have, like, begged for it. I don't think it would have happened had there not been as much support for the character. Her as a character deserved way more than what Marvel gave her in any of the movies. Even more is disinterested in Black Widow. Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think Black Widow could have had great moments had the MCU thought of the character more than just female character insert. Um, like if they gave her the same treatment of female empowerment as they did with Captain Marvel, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Like people criticize the Captain Marvel movie that it was pro feminist and things like that. I'm like, no, like we, it was just it was just a movie made with a female lead about a female character, and misogynists are mad because it treats female characters like male characters. They're the star. The female character is the star, and it's centered around them. So yes, it's going to be about that female character. Um, and just because you don't like the actress doesn't mean that the movie is bad. As wooden as Brie Larson gave was in some of those performances, it was still a good movie. There it has a lot of things I criticize, but not Brie Larson. I think she's a fantastic actress, and I think she did a good job as Captain Marvel. What was her performance consistent all the way through? No, not even close. Um, but I really like her as an actress, and I really like a lot of what she did in Captain Marvel. Someone Google girlfriend, yeah. Uh, Captain Marvel would have been nice. It's so weird. I hate when you don't have a character presently, and then you do a prequel movie to have a character, and then you have that character a prequel movie show up in the latest movie. It just seems like you were finding a reason, like there was no reason to have that movie exist in the 90s. If you think about it, having her venture off into space and patrolling out in space, there was no reason to have it set in the 90s other than one, 90s nostalgia for a lot of people that watch it, like adults who have memories of the 90s, um, and to make her like the inspiration for the Avengers. um, for the name Avengers anyway, uh, because Fury was already developing the program. Um, but like, was her character forced into the MCU? Yeah. Could they have just put her in the present time and had her get her powers in between Infinity War and Endgame? Yeah. Like if 5 minutes of the latest movie. Yeah. I yeah. Uh I think they could have released her movie after Infinity War, and make it set in between Infinity War and Endgame. And because there's 5 years in between, so they could have just let her. She could have been a hero in that time, and still ventured across the galaxy. Um, helping out other planets. She still would have had the same lines. She would have had the same interactions with the current players in Endgame that she had. All of the lines of dialogue would be the same, and it we wouldn't have to ignore the fact that she didn't age at all from her movie to Endgame, um, pre and post time skip. We wouldn't have to. Uh, we wouldn't ignore all the characters from her movie in Endgame because, like, none of them are mentioned again. Um, so I don't know. Like, it was a good movie and I enjoyed the movie, but like I would have done it a different way. How? 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 Ooh, we need to put these in our log chests. Log chests. How? Uh, hmm. How close are you? You are done. Put you over there. But I don't know. I am excited. Like, I'll see Black Widow. I probably won't see it in theaters, even though they're waiting to release it in theaters. Um, I will probably like. I'm excited to see Kang in Ant-Man 3. But I want him to not be the main villain. I want him to um, kind of be like someone who comes in the third act and lays out the consequences of time travel. Um, I the next Thor movie, Taika Waititi uh, is I don't know if he's directing it, but he wrote it. Um, I have opinions about Thor Ragnarok. It's a lot of people's favorite, and I get why. It's hilarious. It's funny. Yeah, Kang as new Thanos would be good. Um, I get why people really like Ragnarok. I get it. Totally get it. It's funny, um, especially with what happens, in Infinity War as a darker ending with characters dying, um, being blipped away. Uh, but I totally understand why people like Ragnarok. It makes sense. I think in my opinion, as a Ragnarok is a good movie, but it's not a good Thor movie. The best Thor movie is The Dark World, but it's not the best movie. Which sounds weird. It sounds counterintuitive. And let me explain. Thor: The Dark World, that movie is a purpose. Thor: The Dark World gives expands upon the lore, character, set, scenery, everything that was established in the first Thor movie. It expands upon it. It gives us so much depth. Um, and then having Thor go back and forth to Midgard, Earth, gives us so much human character development for Thor. And we get to still have fun joke. We still get to have fun jokes in it. Kat Dennings is amazing in the Thor movies. She's annoying, but that's her character, and it's hilarious. Uh, Nat- Natalie Portman's performances aside in those movies, I think The Dark World is so much better. Um, we got to see the best acting from Tom Hiddleston as Loki, hands down, the best acting. When he dies in Infinity War, no, absolutely not. Ragnarok, he is the straight man in the comedy duo of him and Thor. No, the best acting we see from Loki and the best like real authentic interaction and cooperation between him and Thor exists in Ragnarok. They work together. But Loki is still Loki. Loki still tricks him, even with that cooperation. But it's just so much more true to the characters, not so much the story, because it does its own thing with the story, which is fine. Um, like being inspired by the comics and doing your own story is fine, not a big deal. But for people to say that like the MCU movies are comic book accurate is false on so many terms and for so many reasons. But the Dark World does a great job at giving us a minor villain like Malekith, and Malekith was frightening, but he wasn't powerful on his own. Like Freya, or is it Freya or Frigga? Thor's mom, like manhandles Malekith. Like she like whoops his butt in one of the fights in there. She handles him all on her own, and it's awesome because we really get to see how powerful Asgardians are, other than Thor. Like Asgardians are powerful humanoid aliens. Um, so like, and she is exceptionally powerful, and I loved it. But he's not like, but Malekith is seeking the power, um, and Christopher Eccleston was great as him. I love his voice, that kind of uh, it's kind of a low, like hollow um, growl to it, and I love it. Um, Not the best villain out of them, of the Thor movies, but because even with Hela being like a super strong character, she was not. You could explore that. She was not a great. She was a great villain, but the story around Hela, like Ragnarok, does very little to interact with Hela. It's weird. But yeah. Anyway, I am spent. I am spent. I'm tired. My voice is toast. Um, but yeah, I am going to accept and change. Oh, I was like, what are you talking about? Uh, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. But thank you guys for watching. Um, if you are watching me here on Twitch, go ahead and consider giving me a follow. Just hit that little heart button. Helps me out a whole bunch. If you are watching this on Joseph Gordon-Levitt is amazing in G.I. Joe. You take that back. Um, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and if you would like to subscribe, you can do that as well. Um, I am at Mr. Retro on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, all those things. That's MMRRETRO. That's two M's, two R's, ETRO. So, thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.